At Starbound, we tell stories the human way, not with artificial voices or AI garbage. And what's HFY without humanity? Subscribe to keep it that way. I'm Daniel Pierce, and I'm going to be your narrator. Now, let's get into today's story. The hologram of Arbiter Foros wavered, an 8-foot column of shimmering energy that radiated condescension. General Madeline Cirilla stood at parade rest on the Endurance's bridge, her own image transmitted across a few dozen light-years to the conclave plenum. She kept her posture rigid and her chin level, her features set. Inside, she was composing limericks about the anatomical impossibilities of Foros' species. General Cirilla. Foros chimed, a series of harmonious tones his translator device rendered into formal standard. The light within his form coiled in a lazy, confident spiral. We have reviewed the sensor logs from your engagement with the Vogon Third Fleet in the Veles system. Your victory was total. That was the intent, Arbiter, Cirilla said, her voice flat. Behind Foros' shimmering form, other holograms flickered, representatives from the dozens of species that comprised the Galactic Conclave. A few leaned forward in their projections. Most recoiled, their avatars flickering with static agitation. Indeed, Foros' light pulsed. You reported a reactor breach aboard the flagship under your command. You broadcast distress calls on all channels. You ordered the fleet to feign a panic, disorganized retreat, drawing the entirety of High Warlord Volg's forces into the Casterian asteroid field. A tactical withdrawal, Cirilla corrected, her tone mild. A withdrawal that led the Vogon fleet directly into a minefield of self-guiding plasma charges, Foros continued, his chimes sharpening, grating through the translator. Mines deployed by your reconnaissance ships 3 days prior. While they oriented their shields forward to pursue your fleeing vessels, the mines detonated along their engine sections. The result was a chain reaction of exploding reactors that annihilated every last Vogon ship. Cirilla let the silence stretch before answering. As I said, total. You deceived them, General. You feigned weakness to create a trap. This approach is dishonorable. It is a ruse. The translator stuttered, spitting the word out like a foul taste. I am a human, Arbiter. Ruses are a cornerstone of our strategic history. Cirilla gave a thin, cold smile. We find them effective. May I present my fleet's casualty report from the Veles engagement for the Tribunal's records? She gestured to her aide, who tapped a console. A new display appeared in the holographic court. It contained a single number. 0. And now, Cirilla said, her voice dropping, I would like to present the casualty report from the Anothian 11th Fleet's last honorable engagement with the Vogon at the Battle of Karshan. Another display appeared. The numbers were much larger. 80% of their vessels destroyed or crippled, 92% crew casualties. Foros' form blazed, his chimes hardening into a discordant clang. The heroes of Karshan met their fate with courage and honor. They met the enemy in open combat, as warriors should. They met the enemy in open combat and died, Cirilla countered, her voice tightening. My people met their engines with a series of well-placed explosives and lived. I failed to see how the Anothian outcome is preferable. Because a dishonorable victory is a spiritual defeat, Foros chimed, his form strobing. It is a position that erodes the fabric of civilization. Your tactics, General, are the great betrayal's echo. It began with feints, with false surrenders. It ended with biological weapons deployed on unsuspecting worlds. An entire species erased from the galaxy because their conquerors refused to feign them in open battle. We created the Ares Accords to prevent such horror from happening again. Cirilla stood firm. The Great Betrayal was the Conclave's favorite ghost story, the ultimate justification for a set of rules designed to maximize bloodshed. Foros' form coalesced, his light hardening into a focused beam.
Your methods are dangerous, General. They invite atrocities. Therefore, this tribunal is proposing a universal addendum to the Ares Accords effective immediately upon the vote. Henceforth, we will classify any and all forms of strategic misdirection as a Class A war crime. No feints, no ambushes, no traps. All combatants must engage directly, announce their intentions, and fight honorably.
He paused. The bridge hummed, the silence amplifying his words.
Your victory, General Cirilla, will be the last of its kind.
Cirilla stared at the shimmering fool who was about to sentence millions to death, and for the first time in the hearing, her composure cracked. She set her mouth into a thin, hard line. The cold, hard certainty settled in. Idiots surrounded her. The vote was nearly unanimous. Cirilla watched the results scroll down the main screen on the Endurance's bridge, each yay sealing the fate of rational strategy. Her command staff stood around the holographic display, their expressions tight, mouths drawn thin. Commander Falk, her executive officer, clenched his jaw until a muscle jumped.
They actually did it,
Falk muttered, his voice a low growl.
They've outlawed tactics.
They've outlawed thinking, Cirilla corrected, taking a sip of bitter black coffee. From now on, we line up our ships, they line up theirs, and we shoot until one side is mostly space dust. That's arithmetic, a calculation of losses. A moment later, a priority directive blinked onto her command console. From Coalition High Command, already rubber-stamping the Conclave's insanity, her new orders were simple and direct.
2. General M. Cirilla, Commanding Officer, Battle Group Endurance. From Coalition High Command, regarding Vogon Offensive, Hydra Sector. 1. Proceed to Hydra Blockade, engage Vogon 5th and 9th Fleets. 2. Conduct combat in accordance with newly ratified Ares Accords Addendum 914. 3. Maintain a direct line of battle engagement, no deviations permitted. 4. Break the blockade.
Falk read the order over her shoulder.
Ma'am, that's a meat grinder. The 5th and 9th outnumber us 3-2. The ships are heavier, a direct engagement.
I know it is, Commander, she said, her voice low and taut. She closed the directive, the afterimage of its words burning in her mind. They were directing her to preside over a slaughter, a sacrifice. The order was to sacrifice her ships and her crews on the altar of Anothian honor. She turned from her console and stared out the main viewport at the star-strewn void. Feeling the cold weight of war, the rules now forbade her from winning. The only sound was a low hum of life support. The bridge crew remained silent. They were professionals. They would follow the orders, but the set of their shoulders and the way they avoided each other's eyes said everything. Then a unique chime sounded exclusively on her personal comms unit, encrypted point-to-point and routed through half a dozen dead-prop relays, untraceable. She flickered her gaze to the corner of her console. A message containing only a set of coordinates and a timestamp. The coordinates pointed to a turbulent stellar nursery known as the Serpent's Veil, a place where sensor arrays filled with static and comm signals vanished into the background noise. Cirilla looked at the coordinates, then back at the orders on her screen. The Conclave wanted her to play their game, a noble, honorable contest where the prize for losing was death. She decided, in that moment, to stop playing. Cirilla's personal shuttle, the Quercus, was a small, functional craft designed for short-range atmospheric flight, a feature that made it the perfect cover. Her official flight plan logged an inspection tour of the fleet's outer pickets. Her official comms log would soon report a critical navigation failure near the Serpent's Veil, forcing her to go dark to effect repairs. The lie was transparent, but plausible enough for the logs and forgotten. She piloted the shuttle herself, the swirling ionized gases from the nebula painting the cockpit in shifting hues of magenta and emerald. The Veil lived up to its reputation. Her sensor screen flickered with ghost signals and a torrent of false readings. but the coordinates were solid. Right on time, a ship resolved from the cosmic dust. A Silix vessel appeared, its design unique in the galaxy. The vessel's design was biological, a seamless fusion of laminated structures and a dark matte alloy that absorbed the light. Stark, functional, a single docking umbilical extended from its flank, a silent invitation. Cyrilla guided the Quercus in, the magnetic clamps locking on with a solid thud. The air in the Silix ship was thin, cold, and carried a faint, sharp scent like charged minerals and chilled silicates. Waiting for her in the minimalist airlock was a being as stark as his vessel. Fleetmaster Chiton was a tall, slender creature, balanced on a tripedal base. His two arms were long and ending in hands with numerous joints. His skin was a dense, fibrous integument, the color of cooled magma, patterned with static, brighter lines that resembled circuitry. His head was an elongated teardrop shape, housing a singular ocular lens that ran horizontally, wrapping halfway around his skull. He moved with perfect efficiency. Each gesture flowed from start to finish with uniform velocity.
General Cyrilla,
he stated. His voice was a flat, uninflected baritone, the words clipped. Subsonic vibrations from plates on his thorax likely carried the nuance for his own kind, but to a human the delivery was direct.
Fleetmaster Chiton, Cyrilla replied, offering a short nod. Thank you for the invitation. Your message was discreet.
Discretion is a logical prerequisite for our conversation,
Chiton said, his silver lens cataloging her with the intensity of a data scan.
The Conclave's new law is inefficient. It will lead to the extinction of species that prioritize survival over spectacle.
Cyrilla raised an eyebrow.
Spectacle?
The Anothians believe war is a stage play,
Chiton clarified, his tone utterly flat.
They value the performance's quality over the outcome. This is a flawed premise.
I agree, Cyrilla said. But what do you propose to do about it?
The Vogon Dominion threatens Silix territory. Direct engagement, as mandated by the Accords, will degrade our fleet assets by nearly half within 3 standard years. This is an unacceptable rate of attrition. Your human coalition faces a similar projection.
At least, Cyrilla agreed grimly.
Therefore, we require a secondary strategy,
Chiton continued.
My proposal is this. Our primary fleets will maintain the public pretense of adhering to Conclave doctrine. They will engage in observable, honorable combat on a limited scale. This will satisfy the Anothians.
He paused, his silver lens fixed on hers.
Simultaneously, a covert force comprised of human and Silix assets operating through unofficial channels will prosecute the war according to logical, effective principles.
Cyrilla smiled, her expression sharp and speculative.
You're proposing a secret war, Fleetmaster.
I am proposing a war we can win, he corrected. The Conclave's law is the obstacle. We will operate around it. We will be ghost, unseen, unofficial. They'll attribute our actions to sensor ghost, Vogan incompetence, stellar phenomena.
He extended a hand. He had clearly learned the gesture. It was foreign to his species.
One rule binds us, General. Victory at minimum cost.
Cyrilla looked at his complex hand. He was offering her a way out, a way to fight, a way to save her people from the glorious, honorable death the Conclave had planned for them. She had come here expecting a negotiation. Instead, she found a ready-made conspiracy. She took his offered hand. His hand felt cool and unyielding with the texture of polished mineral.
One rule, Cyrilla agreed. Win.
Chiton tilted his head a fraction of a degree.
Excellent. I have already compiled a list of initial targets. The Vogans maintain a network of fuel depots in the Tartarus Drift, lightly defended. Their destruction would cripple the Hydra blockade's long-range operational capacity.
He had come prepared. Cyrilla was starting to like him. Cyrilla's covert strike group, a small flotilla of 3 frigates and a light cruiser, was officially Long-Range Reconnaissance Squadron 9. Their orders were to patrol the Tartarus Drift's outer edge and maintain strict communication silence to avoid detection. Few would expect them to start a fight. All ships report status, Cyrilla ordered from the frigate intruder's cramped CIC. Her flagship, the Endurance, was with the main fleet preparing for its honorable suicide run at the Hydra blockade. Reports trickled in, all systems green. Fleetmaster Chiton, she said, turning to the holographic projector displaying the Silic's commanders in passive form. Your fleet is in position?
Affirmative, General,
Chiton replied.
My ships have cloaked at the designated coordinates. We await your signal.
Good. Cyrilla turned to her comms officer. Launch the decoys. Let's make some noise. From concealed launchers on the frigates, a dozen small probes shot into the void. A moment later, they activated. To any long-range sensor, a massive fleet had just dropped out of FTL. The probes projected holographic ship images and mimicked the energy signatures of 24 Coalition battlecruisers and destroyers. We have their attention, the sensor officer reported, grinning. The Vogon Defense Patrol Depot crash is turning to intercept our armada. They're powering weapons.
As predicted,
Chiton stated from the projector.
Their tactical doctrine is rigid. They must meet a direct threat with a direct response.
Cyrilla watched the main display grid. The Vogon ship's 6 lumbering cruisers charged headlong towards empty space, their guns blazing at phantoms. She might as well have been watching a bull trying to fight a matador's cape. They've cleared the depot's defensive perimeter, Cyrilla said into the comm. Fleetmaster, the stage is yours.
Acknowledged,
Chiton replied. On the display, a new set of icons appeared near the now vulnerable fuel depot. The Silic strike force decloaked, their laminated hulls emerging from the void like shards of night. They maneuvered as one, their movement synchronized down to the microsecond. Lances of focused energy, razor-thin beams, stabbed out and pierced the massive fuel tanks. Though space was silent, the sight was spectacular. The depot erupted in a series of silent, blossoming fireballs, bright enough to momentarily outshine the distant stars. The Vogon patrol, realizing the deception, turned back, but too late. By the time they arrived, the Silex had vanished back into the void's cloak. The Vogon ships milled about the wreckage of their depot, their comms channels lighting up with confused and angry shouts. The Coalition Phantom Fleet had vanished as mysteriously as it appeared. The Conclave would only see a standard patrol report from Recon Squadron 9. The Silex left no official trace. Aboard the intruder, a small, grim smile pulled at Cyrilla's lips. She was now officially a war criminal. A spark of exhilaration shot through her, unsettling and welcome. The secure virtual meeting space was a plain gray grid extending to an infinite horizon, populated only by attendee avatars. Cyrilla's human command staff, looking stiff and solid, and Chiton's officers, represented as cool silver silhouettes. The raids on the fuel depots have happened their fleet operations. Cyrilla began pacing the virtual floor. But the Vogons are a terrestrial power. Their strength is in their ground armies, their legions of heavily armored warriors. To win, we need to cripple their ability to take and hold planets, and we need to find a way that avoids a costly invasion.
Direct orbital bombardment is inefficient,
Chiton's avatar stated, his synthesized voice flat.
They have hoarded in their fortress worlds. The material cost of cracking them is prohibitive. So starving them is ineffective and bombing them is futile, Commander Falk summarized. That leaves a ground war, which we've already established is a non-starter.
A junior officer from intelligence, a young lieutenant named Calloway, coughed nervously. He was lean with a restless energy that kept him in constant motion. General, permission to propose an unconventional approach. Cyrilla gestured for him to continue. The floor is yours, Lieutenant. The more unconventional, the better. Calloway straightened up. I've been studying 20th and 21st century human history, specifically psychological warfare campaigns. I found a recurring principle: an enemy who questions his own strength has already half-beaten himself. He brought up a holographic image. It showed a Vogon warrior in full battle armor, a bipedal mountain of layered alloy and muscle, holding a plasma rifle the size of a human torso. Vogon culture builds on a foundation of physical superiority and martial pride, Calloway explained. Their honor ties to their strength. They believe they are the strongest species in the galaxy, and their victories have consistently reinforced this belief. What if we could introduce doubt? He swiped the image, replacing it with a design schematic. It showed a standard-issue Vogon rifle power cell. Next to it, he placed another schematic, one for a power cell 5 times larger. I call it Operation Ego Trip, Calloway said, his eyes wide and bright. We mass-produce a series of inert, oversized Vogon weapon components, power cells the size of their heads, bayonets that look like broadswords, armor plates for a being 12 feet tall. Then we forge technical schematics, label them standard-issue human infantry, and we covertly drop the components and the plans onto their garrison worlds. The virtual room went silent. Cyrilla stared at the schematics, a slow smile spreading across her face. Falk looked like he was trying to decide if Calloway was a genius or insane. The goal is simple demoralization, Calloway finished, speaking faster now. The average Vogon soldier finds this stuff. He struggles to lift the power cell and finds it too large for his weapon. He sees the schematics. He concludes one of two things. Either human technology is so advanced that our standard gear is massive, implying we are a race of giants, or his own high command has issued him inferior equipment. Either way, paranoia and insecurity begin to fester. All the silver silic silhouettes turned to face Chiton. For a long moment, the Fleet Master's avatar was still. His subordinates were running calculations. The material cost of fabricating useless junk versus the projected impact on enemy morale. At last, Chiton's avatar spoke.
The logic is chaotic.
Calloway deflated slightly.
But the projected outcome is efficient,
Chiton continued.
Disrupting enemy command cohesion by psychological means represents a significant conservation of resources.
He turned his featureless silver head toward Cyrilla's holographic form.
Proceed, General.
Cyrilla clapped the young lieutenant on the shoulder, the gesture passing through his holographic form. Calloway, you beautiful, devious bastard. Get to it. They timed the drop on the fortress world of Gessim to coincide with a heavy meteor shower. A swarm of cloaked Silix drones, mimicking the signatures of falling rocks, descended through the upper atmosphere. They dropped crates filled with meticulously crafted garbage. On the intruder's bridge, Cyrilla and Chiton monitored the results via a network of microscopic Silix listening devices seated on the planet weeks earlier. The first intercepts were gold.
What do you mean it's too big?
A gruff Vogon barked. The garrison commander rumbled like shifting rock. Blood spigots, as I said, a subordinate replied, his tone laced with confusion. The power cell is the size of my helmet. The schematics makings are clear. It indicates this is the standard model for the human rifle.
Nonsense. They are small, soft creatures. A trick.
Perhaps, the subordinate said, his certainty fading. Or perhaps the warriors we fight on the front are atypical. There are rumors of giant shock troops, titans they call them. The rumor, of course, originated with Coalition intelligence operatives on backwater trading posts a month ago. They listened as another commander accused a rival of hoarding the superior human-sized equipment for his own troops. The rival took the accusation as an insult to his honor and declared a duel. By the day cycle's end, comrades had killed 3 high-ranking Vogon officers on Gessim in honor duels. Unit cohesion had plummeted. Reports of insubordination and bar fights skyrocketed. The garrison, once a formidable fighting force, had turned on itself, all because of a few crates of oversized inert scrap metal. Cyrilla leaned back in her command chair, listening to a recording of two Vogon sergeants arguing about whether humans could bench press a light armored vehicle.
Reviewing the data streams, Kyton said from the holo projector. Command effectiveness on the target world has decreased by 61%. This operation has exceeded projections for efficiency. He paused. This tactic of weaponized absurdity is novel to Silic's strategy.
It is a core competency, Cyrilla said with a smirk. You should see our ancient information plagues. They were a weapon class all their own. A chime from her personal console cut through the relative quiet. A Priority 1 summons from Arbiter Foros. Her smile vanished. Foros's holographic form seemed to fill her ready room, his light a cool, interrogative intensity. He went straight to the point.
General Cyrilla, the Conclave has noted a series of inexplicable logistic failures within the Vogon Dominion.
His translated voice was sharp, each word an accusation.
Fuel depots spontaneously combusting, garrisons dissolving into internecine squabbles. It is a statistical anomaly.
War is chaotic, Arbiter, Cyrilla said, her hands clasped behind her back.
Chaos favors all sides equally,
Foros countered, his light swirling faster.
This pattern seems to exclusively benefit forces under your operational umbrella. I will ask you directly, General. Have you, or any forces under your command, engaged in any activities prohibited under Ares Accords Addendum 914?
Arbiter, my primary battle fleet under the direct command of Commander Falk has engaged the enemy in a series of direct line-of-battle encounters exactly as ordered. We have maintained the line at Hydra, and we have done so honorably. Her covert operations were separate from Battlegroup Endurance. Recon Squadron 9 was technically an independent unit. The Silics operated under their own command. Every word she said was true. Foros's light flickered. He had theories, but they remained unproven. The Vogons were too proud to ever admit that ghosts and pranksters were outsmarting them. To them, it was just bad luck and internal weakness.
I note your semantic exactitude, General,
Foros said, his chimes turning cold.
But these anomalies are making the Conclave's strategy of honorable engagement appear foolish. The Anothian fleets are bleeding for every meter of space, while your sector reports victory after victory with suspiciously low casualties.
He drew himself up to his full, imposing height.
Second-hand reports are insufficient. I am dispatching myself aboard the diplomatic vessel Luminar Beacon to the Hydra sector. I will observe your operations personally and mediate the conflict to ensure full compliance with the Accords.
A cold knot formed in Cyrilla's stomach. A mediator, an observer, a warden.
I warn you, General.
Foros's voice was flat, leaving no room for argument.
I will discover any breach of the Accords, however small, and it will result in the human coalition's immediate expulsion from the Galactic Conclave and a full galactic censure.
The hologram vanished, leaving Cyrilla alone in the quiet of her ready room. The clock was ticking. Foros was coming, and he was coming to watch her soldiers die. The report from Commander Falk was waiting for her when she returned to the bridge. She opened the file. The file contained a recording from the Endurance's bridge during their latest proper battle. Falk's fleet had lined up, just as the Accords demanded, exchanging broadsides as honor dictated. The Volgan ships, heavier and more numerous, absorbed the punishment and dished out more. The Coalition cruiser Stalwart buckled, its spine broken by a volley of kinetic slugs. The destroyer Adamant ripped open its compartments, venting atmosphere and bodies into the void. Falk kept his voice steady, calling out targets, managing damage control, holding the line. The casualty count was horrific. The stalwart and adamant, gone. The battlecruiser Defiance, crippled. 1,842 casualties. 1,842 people dead or maimed because an 8-foot-tall light bulb thought ducking was dishonorable. They had held the line and even pushed the Vulgans back, a victory by the Conclave standards. Cyrilla closed the file, her grip on the command slate tightening. This was the cost of Foros's honor. This was the Ares Accord's price. She pictured the faces of her lost crew, the young men and women she had sent to their deaths in a fight they could have won without a single casualty. Whatever doubt she had vanished. Her purpose became a singular. Foros wanted to mediate. He wanted to watch. She would give him a resolution, but it would be on her own terms. She opened a secure channel to Chiton. Fleetmaster, the timetable has moved up. We are ending this war now. A short pause, then he replied flatly.
Specify your requirements, General.
I require a way to collapse the entire Vogon command structure, she said. All of it, at once. Another pause, this one longer. She could almost hear the logical processes running.
There may be a theoretical possibility, Chiton said. It involves an experimental Silix technology. It is unorthodox.
Fleetmaster, Cyrilla stated, a predatory gleam in her eyes. You have my undivided attention.
We call it the Cacophony Engine,
Chiton explained, his avatar displaying a complex schematic of a device that looked like a nest of interwoven resonant filaments.
It's broadcast.
Cyrilla studied the schematic, her brow furrowed. Broadcast what? Propaganda?
Something more fundamental, Chiton stated. Our intelligence has analyzed the Volgon social structure. Culture and biology enforce their rigid hierarchy. A low-level network psionic signal links every Vogon to their direct superior, culminating in the High Warlord, a transmission of command authority. It ensures loyalty and immediate obedience.
A hive mind, Falk asked, looking skeptical.
A biological command and control network, Chiton corrected. Each individual retains their identity, but the will of their superior constantly influences them. It is what makes them such effective, if unimaginative, soldiers. They obey orders instantly.
And this engine? Cyrilla prompted.
It injects a contradictory signal psychic noise into the network, Chiton explained. Emotional feedback loops. It severs the link between a Vogon and his commander, leaving him connected only to his own paranoia, his own ambition, his own fear.
You turn the greatest strength into the greatest weakness, she breathed. Instant chaos.
Correct, Chiton confirmed. The Silix societal network is substantially more complex, which gave us the unique insight required to devise such a countermeasure. The engine should, theoretically, cause their entire command structure to collapse into a frenzy of infighting and paranoia.
There's a catch, Cyrilla stated.
The broadcast range is limited, Chiton said. It must infect the primary node, Vogue himself. The psychic corruption will flow down the network from there. To be effective, we must activate the engine within close proximity to the central nexus, his orbital command station above Draxar Prime.
Falk swore under his breath. That's the most heavily defended point in the entire Dominion. A suicide run. Cyrilla fixed her attention elsewhere. She fixed her gaze on another image on the main display grid. A list of captured enemy assets. Near the list's top was a Vulcan dreadnought, the Iron Fist, A subnote flashed beside its designation. Status: FTL core mountings require native dry dock for repair. Recommend for scrap. Low priority. An idea, ancient and audacious, formed in her mind. A plan so steeped in deception it would make Arbiter Foros' light form physically unravel. She looked at the captured dreadnought's image, a hulking, ugly beast of a ship. The ship was the key. Cyrilla gathered her human and Silex command staff in the virtual grid. An anticipatory stillness settled over the avatars. She laid it out for them, her voice calm and steady. "We are going to take the captured Vogon dreadnought, the Iron Fist. We will rename her the Mercy of Vogue. We will stage a mock battle, inflicting heavy cosmetic damage on her. Then we will load her with a joint human-Silex strike force and the cacophony engine." She let that sink in before delivering the puzzle's final insane piece. "And then we are going to offer the ship back to High Warlord Vogue as a gift. A gesture of goodwill, a sign that we are adhering to the Conclave's new honorable rules of warfare." The human officers stared at her. Silence fell across the virtual grid. The Silex avatars were motionless, processing the proposition. Kyton was the first to speak. A rare hesitation entered his synthesized voice.
General, let me clarify the tactical model. We are to conceal our primary assault force inside an enemy vessel, and then voluntarily deliver this vessel to the enemy's central command as a gift.
"That's the shape of it, yes," Cyrilla confirmed.
What is the strategic precedent for this? Kyton asked. Surrendering a functional weapon system containing an elite military force is counterintuitive.
Cyrilla allowed herself a wide, predatory grin. It felt like she was letting a caged animal out for a run. "It's an old army strategy. Ancient. We call it the Trojan Horse." The Silex avatars all turned to Kyton. His translator must have been working overtime, searching for a cultural or linguistic equivalent missing from their databases. He looked back at Cyrilla, his gaze steady through the silver lens.
"What's a Trojan horse?"
The human officers leaned forward in their virtual chairs. "Well, Fleetmaster," she began, her voice taking on the cadence of a historian telling her favorite tale. "A long time ago, on a little planet called Earth, a city named Troy existed." Cyrilla's covert fleet, Recon Squadron 9, stumbled upon the captured dreadnought, now renamed the Mercy of Vogue and crewed by a skeleton Silex team. They broadcast the engagement on open channels, knowing Vogon listening posts would be eavesdropping. Low-powered lasers painted spectacular but shallow scars across the dreadnought's thick armor. Plasma torpedoes, their warheads replaced with inert slugs, detonated in brilliant flashes that left the shields pristine. The finale was a stroke of genius from Lieutenant Calloway. The Coalition frigate Dauntless made a sacrificial run, firing its main gun before a point-blank shot from the dreadnought's primary cannon appeared to vaporize it. In reality, the Dauntless had engaged a cloaking device at the moment of impact, while a deployed decoy exploded for the cameras. To any observer, it looked like the dreadnought had taken down an attacker before succumbing to sustained damage. It went dead in the water, venting streams of glowing plasma from strategically damaged conduits. "They're crippled," Cyrilla broadcast on an open, unencrypted channel, her voice tight with feigned frustration. "Leave it. As per the Accords, we must leave a helpless vessel intact. Let the Warlord have his broken toy back." Her fleet turned and retreated, leaving the bait floating in the silent dark. On the flagship's bridge orbiting Drexar Prime, High Warlord Vogue laughed, the sound of an avalanche.
"They run,"
he bellowed, his massive armored form shaking.
"The soft skins lose one ship, and their nerve breaks."
His bridge officers, all hulking Vogon brutes, roared their approval. A communications officer turned from his console.
"High Warlord, we have an incoming message from Coalition General Cyrilla." "Put it on screen."
Vogue grunted. Cirilla's face appeared, her expression studiously neutral. High Warlord Vogue, my fleet has disengaged. In accordance with the Ares Accords, we leave the disabled dreadnought Mercy of Vogue for you to recover. May it serve as a reminder of the Conclave's commitment to honorable conflict. The transmission ended. Vogue's commanders muttered among themselves.
Yeah, it's a trick.
One of them growled.
The ship may hold booby traps, or their internal sensors could be active. They could be watching us.
Vogue slammed a gauntlet fist on his command throne's arm, denting the metal.
Silence! Then we will give them a show of our superiority. Activate a full spectrum jamming field around the ship as we tow it. Let the cowards see only static.
He stared at the drifting dreadnought's image. The act screamed weakness. The Conclave had shackled the humans, forced them to fight with honor, and this was the result. They were cowards, leaving a prize beyond their grasp.
It is a testament to their weakness,
Vogue declared, his voice dripping with contempt.
They failed to destroy it, so they leave it for us. We will bring it here. We will repair it, and it will serve as a monument to their failure, a symbol of their pathetic, honor-bound cowardice.
He jabbed at the screen with a thick claw.
Send the recovery crew. Tow that piece of human frailty home.
On an open channel, he sent his own reply to the Coalition fleet, a short, guttural roar of laughter that echoed across the sector. Lieutenant Orlova sat with her squad in the mercy of Vogue's cavernous, unlit cargo bay. The air was cold, the thick smell of engine grease and nervous sweat barely masked by the scrubbers. Around her, 30 Coalition Marines and 20 Silix warriors sat in silence, weapons held ready. They were the spear's tip. Low-frequency vibrations shuddered through the deck as the Vogon tractor beam locked onto the dreadnought's hull. The long ride began. For hours, they sat in the dark, listening to the quiet clicks of weapons checks. She traced the infiltration route on her wrist-mounted display one last time. The Vogon Orbital Command Station schematics, provided by Silix Intelligence, were complete down to the last power conduit. She glanced at the heavy packs containing the Coalition thermic lances and the sleek Silix phase cutters. Contingencies for contingencies. A Silix warrior glanced at a Coalition Marine who gave a single, sharp nod in return. They were ready. The ship lurched, a heavy, grinding shudder that ran through the entire deck. The docking clamp's metallic shriek echoed through the hull. They were here. A quiet but steady voice whispered over their encrypted comms. Cirilla piped in from light minutes away. Stand by, strike team. You're home. On the intruder's bridge, stationed just outside Serpent's Veil, Cirilla fixed her gaze on the main display grid. The Mercy of Vogue was a friendly icon docked with the massive enemy station. Kaitan's holographic form stood beside her, motionless. The strike team is in position, Cirilla said, her voice a low murmur. Silix team, are you ready? We have primed the cacophony engine and synced it to the station's power grid, Kaitan's voice replied. Ready on your command, General. Begin the broadcast. Kaitan nodded. On Cirilla's display, the intricate, orderly web of the Vogon command and control network flared. Then, it dissolved into a chaotic, staticky mess. It's active, Cirilla said into her command link. Strike team, go! I repeat, go! Aboard the Mercy of Vogue, explosive charges blew the cargo bay doors inwards with a deafening bang. Lieutenant Orlova and her team stormed out into the docking bay, fanning out into their planned positions. The Vogon technicians on duty looked up, their faces confused and panicked. They neutralized the technicians and melted into the service corridors, the alarm consoles dormant. They encountered disoriented patrols, Vogons who seemed to be arguing with themselves, their authority shattered. The human Silix teams moved through them, a synchronized dance of blades and stun blast. They moved fast until they hit an obstacle, an unexpected security blast door. Recent addition, a Silix warrior stated beside her. Logical, futile. Yeah. Lance up! Orlova yelled. A Marine brought a thermic lance to bear. A tool roared, slicing a glowing circle through the hardened metal. They kicked the slab free and poured through the opening, finding themselves in the command center's antechamber, the throne room. Orlova kicked the doors open. Inside, High Warlord Vogue stood by his command throne, bellowing in rage, his eyes wild. His own guards looked at him with suspicion and fear, their loyalty gone. The psionic link that ensured their obedience shattered, replaced by a torrent of psychic noise. To them, their warlord was a screaming madman. Vogue saw the strike team and roared, raising his massive gravhammer. Before he could swing it, a Silix warrior fired a stunner, and the High Warlord, the conqueror of a dozen systems, collapsed in a heap of armor and flesh. Orlova keyed her calm, breathing hard but her voice steady.
Spearhead to command. The package is secure. I repeat, the package is secure.
On board the intruder, Cirilla exhaled, a tension she was unaware of, leaving her shoulders.
The war, she murmured, is over.
Arbiter Foros' diplomatic vessel, the Luminar Beacon, was a thing of beauty, a swirling sculpture of light and energy that moved through space with effortless speed. Foros stood on its bridge, his form radiating calm authority as it dropped out of FTL at Draxar Prime's designated coordinates. He arrived expecting chaos of battle. He found peace. The combined human-Silix fleet held a steady orbit around the planet. The massive Volgan orbital stations were intact, their weapons powered down. In fact, they were broadcasting messages of unconditional surrender on all channels. The space around the planet was clear. Radiation levels were normal. The scene was peaceful. Foros' light flickered in confusion, a discordant chime sounding from his translator. This was wrong. This was inconceivable. A message request appeared on his console. General Madeline Cirilla was inviting him to come aboard the Draxar Prime orbital station. Silix guards, their footsteps silent, escorted Arbiter Foros onto the Volgan station's bridge. Volgan officers, stripped of their armor, their posture defeated and eyes vacant, were being led away by Coalition Marines. Silix warriors stood guard at their posts. General Cirilla was waiting for him, leaning against the central command throne. She was holding a steaming mug of coffee. Fleetmaster Kyton stood beside her. Foros' form of structured light strove violently, its stable column wavering into a chaotic pattern. A series of dissonant clashing chimes scraped the air.
Where is this general?
His translator demanded.
Where is the battle? I am here to mediate the glorious conflict.
Cirilla took a slow, deliberate sip of her coffee. She looked at the frantic pillar of light, then gestured with her mug towards the main view screen, which showed the peaceful planet below.
Mediation is unnecessary, Arbiter,
she said, her voice calm and even.
We had a war to win.
She set her mug down on Vogue's throne arm.
You wanted an honorable stand-up fight. The problem is, the Vogons agreed with you. They were so busy looking for a fist fight, they were unprepared for someone to just kick their legs out from underneath them.
She met his gaze, her expression hardening.
An opponent who only realizes they're in a fight after they've already lost is an opponent who has already lost.
She gestured to the surrendered planet, the captured warlord, the pacified fleet.
The war is over.
Arbiter Foros was silent. His light dimmed, the furious strobing fading to a faint wavering pulse. His translator emitted only a faint, bewildered hum. Reality had just smashed his entire worldview, a construct of honor and glorious battle and noble sacrifice, to pieces against the hard, unyielding wall of pragmatism. Cirilla sat in her office aboard the Endurance, filing her official after-action report. She included everything: the secret alliance with the Silix, Operation Ego Trip, the feigned battle, the Trojan horse. She cataloged every lie, every violation of the Ares Accords, every dishonorable act in meticulous detail. She had sinned. The report flew across the stars to Coalition High Command. The ball was in their court now. She would face a court-martial and be thrown in the brig for the rest of her life. Or they'd mint a new medal just for her. Frankly, either outcome seemed equally likely. Her console chimed. The caller was Chiton.
General,
His flat voice stated.
a matter of political interest. The Silex Collective has formally petitioned the Galactic Conclave to add a new amendment to the Ares Accords.
Oh? Cirilla said, intrigued. I hope you haven't developed a sudden appreciation for honorable combat.
No, Chiton replied. We have proposed the Cirilla Doctrine. It allows for unconventional responses when facing a numerically or technologically superior foe whose doctrine is demonstrably rigid.
Cirilla blinked. You're citing this entire debacle as legal precedent.
We are citing your victory as a logical imperative, Chiton corrected. Survival is the ultimate logic. The Conclave must adapt or become obsolete.
Cirilla looked at her viewport. Pharos' diplomatic ship, the Luminar Beacon, was turning, its beautiful form preparing to warp away. She could almost imagine the bewildered silence on its bridge. The galaxy had changed today.
Your methods are chaotic, General,
Chiton's voice stated, breaking her reverie. So I've been told, she replied dryly.
They are, however, logical.
Cirilla smiled. From a Silex, that was the highest possible compliment. Later, Cirilla walked through the captured Vogon command station's mess hall. The cavernous room, once a feasting hall for roaring warriors, now filled with a quiet, weary bustle. Coalition Marines were trying to explain a card game to a group of impassive Silex. Silex warriors were showing Coalition engineers the proper way to field strip their complex energy weapons. Lieutenant Orlova sat at a table with her squad, wolfing down ration packs. Spotting Cirilla, she jumped to her feet, giving a tired but sharp salute. Cirilla waved her down. At ease, Lieutenant. You've earned it.
This is better, ma'am,
Orlova said, her gaze steady and clear.
Yes,
Cirilla said, her voice soft. It is. She thought of the 1,842 casualties from Fox's honorable battle. Then she looked at the men and women in this room, the ones who had taken the enemy's heart with barely a scratch. The choice the Conclave had given her, between an honorable death and a dishonorable life, was a false choice. That was an illusion crafted by fools who had forgotten that soldiers fought and died for. Cirilla found a quiet spot by a viewport. She leaned against the cold metal, sipping another cup of coffee. Outside, the Vulcan system's sun was rising over their former homeworld's curve. A liberated world, its people free from the iron fist of Volg and his legions. The galaxy was a little safer. She finished her coffee. She had won, and she had done it her way.